Okay, so for this deep dive, we've got quite a specific mission. We're working with a set of sources claiming you can take 7 ancient scriptural fragments, do this rigorous eschatological analysis, and apply it all to a hypothetical crisis point. October 7th, 2025.
It's quite the framework.
It really is. And the central idea is that these texts, when you put them together, form a kind of prophetic mosaic, something that speaks about, the human condition and maybe even a divine timeline.
And what jumps out right away, I think, is the core diagnosis the sources offer for, the state of the world.
Right.
They argue it's not just random chaos or politics as usual. It's seen as this fundamental conflict, a clash between divine order and terrestrial systems that have become, frankly, inherently corrupting.
Corrupting because they're outside that divine standard you mentioned.
Precisely. That's the argument. Operating without that reference point leads things astray.
Okay, that's a massive claim. So let's unpack this a bit. How do these sources actually trace this idea? Where does the analysis say the failure, the corruption begins?
Well, it really starts at this concept of a spiritual vacuum. The sources look at Ezekiel 10, the majestic vision of God's throne, the cherubim, the divine glory.
Yeah, powerful imagery.
Very. But the interpretation here is quite startling. They argue it's actually a vision of departure. The glory is leaving because the place has become defiled.
So the withdrawal is the key event. And that void, that vacuum, that leads directly to the kind of societal breakdown described in Isaiah, where truth is lacking.
Exactly. Isaiah 59.15. When that divine standard, that presence is gone, the moral compass breaks. Truth vanishes, and anyone trying to do right becomes, the sources use the word prey.
Right. Wow. Okay.
And this condition, the spiritual void, sets the stage perfectly for what we see in Ecclesiastes 8.9, that observation that universally man hath ruled over man to his own evil.
Because there's no higher standard left. So governance just becomes self-serving, predatory.
That's the principle they extract, a kind of universal law of fallen governance, observable everywhere under the sun, as Ecclesiastes puts it.
Okay, so let's bring in the figure who helps bridge this to 2025, according to the sources. We're talking about the scholar Dr. Ernest L. Martin. Why is his lens so important here?
Martin's work is critical because it's non-conventional in how it identifies modern geopolitical players within prophecy. And the really key part for this analysis is his identification of Iran, ancient Elam, as the nation prophesied to destroy the end-time city of Babylon.
Iran destroying Babylon. Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting, isn't it? Because the sources apply this framework directly to a hypothetical war.
Yes, a hypothetical conflict in June 2025 between the U.S. and Israel on one side and Iran on the other, involving, significant strikes.
And this hypothetical war isn't just politics. The analysis views it as a major eschatological marker, a signpost.
A huge one. It suggests this conflict pushes the world rapidly towards the appointed time, that phrase from Numbers 28.2, the time for those final prophecies about Babylon's judgment to come to pass. The players are on the board, so to speak.
Right. So let's connect the dots to that specific date, October 7, 2025. The sources paint a picture of the immediate aftermath, and it's bleak.
Extremely bleak. You have the fallout from the Gaza war, over 67,000 casualties mentioned, mass displacement, famine, and Israel itself facing deep political divisions. This whole chaotic scene is presented as just a textbook example of that state where truth is lacking. Complete societal breakdown mirroring that spiritual vacuum.
And right against that backdrop, the sources bring in Matthew 5.5, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the land." How does that fit? It seems almost out of place.
Well, the analysis uses it as a powerful critique. It's aimed at all the warring factions. It suggests the true inheritors, the ones who ultimately receive the promise, aren't any of the current combatants, not the ones relying on force. It's pointing to someone else entirely.
A different group, okay. And you certainly see the failure of the current leadership highlighted. The sources mention the mass protests against Netanyahu's government, but also the catastrophic situation under Hamas rule.
Exactly. It tragically illustrates both sides of that Ecclesiastes principle. Man hath ruled over man to his own evil. The human systems, left to themselves, just haven't delivered peace or justice. Utter failure on that front.
So where does this analysis ultimately lead us? What's the culmination point?
It seems to boil down to the question of identity, and specifically the idea of a true savior versus a false one. It touches on themes from John 8, like the conflict over Abrahamic lineage.
And Martin's framework.
Martin's framework anticipates the emergence of a powerful figure, a kind of false messiah, maybe even an antichrist figure, specifically Jewish in his view, who promises peace but ultimately brings tyranny.
Okay, so the sources take that idea and say,
Right.
what? That any world leader stepping in right now needs watching.
Precisely. Any powerful figure, like, say, a U.S. president proposing a grand peace plan for Jerusalem, they argue you have to view that action with profound prophetic suspicion.
So these political efforts, even if well-intentioned, they become stand-ins for that false savior theme in this prophetic reading.
That's the interpretation. They offer a political fix, a kind of band-aid, that ultimately can't deliver the true lasting peace that the text's promise comes from elsewhere.
Right. It fails to address the spiritual root.
Exactly. So if this environment we see conflicting truths, constant conflict, humanist systems failing, if that is a sign that this long period of judgment, maybe those 70 generations mentioned in other texts like Enoch, is ending.
Then the final question the sources leave you with is,
Yeah, the really provocative thought is this. Forget the political stage for a moment. What non-political movement, or perhaps what kind of figure, is quietly out there today fulfilling that radical promise of the meek? Who actually stands to inherit the land according to that Matthean principle?